Hey, everybody. I am very excited. We have a very special treat for you today. As we put together our Life Mastery training program, we want to develop an incredible group of speakers and trainers within our own organization. But we also want to bring in some people from outside our organization who we really align with, meaning we believe in their value as far as what they're teaching and training, but also the type of person they are. We want them to be in line with our values and so on and so forth. So, at one of our events, we had a young man named Giorgio who's a very successful entrepreneur, $1 million a year earner. Asked us if we were familiar with this young gentleman that he was working with. And I'll be honest, even though he has over 1 million followers, at that point, I was not one of them. So I started looking at his stuff on social media, and I was really impressed. And I'm not easily impressed. I learned how to sell cookware, china, and crystal door to door when I was about 21 years old. So, I've been in sales a long time, had some great training. And I would say the information that this guy teaches and trains on is as good as anyone I've ever seen in my life, including heroes of mine like Zig Ziglar. So, to me, this is a perfect alignment. I am really excited about this. He's going to be speaking at our live event in March in Europe. But for now, we just wanted to give you an opportunity to get a chance to meet him. So I want to introduce you to the one and only Mr. Daniel G. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you, Marc, for having me. I appreciate that, and that's a big introduction and some big shoes to fill when you said Zin Ziegler. So that's a huge compliment. Thank you, I appreciate it, and I'm super excited just to you know uh, be part of your guys' family and pour into the family over the next year. That's going to be exciting. And when you told me you didn't know who I was, when I usually do trainings, I always ask the room. I say, "Guy, raise up hand here. Who knows who I am?" And when half the rooms hands go up, I say, well, first of all, thank you for killing my confidence. But the other thing is this: I say, you know, this is the beauty about sales, because every day you got to show up like a baby. It doesn't matter if I have 1 million followers on social media or we do 100 stages for the year. The next stage doesn't know who the heck you were, so you got to prove yourself every single day. It's like it doesn't matter if you sold $1 million last year. Show up and do it again. It doesn't matter how many stages you did, and it's not even that it doesn't matter. It's like the new people just don't know. It's not that they don't care. It's just that new people don't know if you did bad or
Sure.
that's
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't even know. They don't even know. It's only inside of your head. Success and the wins are only in your head until your little community. But outside, it's so small if you lose,
Oh,
right? You know?
no doubt. Well, listen, I mean, I wasn't familiar with your work. As soon as I went to your Instagram page. And I just started watching a couple of your clips, and I got to tell you, I love your clips because in those very short periods, man, you get people's attention. And I compared you to Zig Ziglar. I'd say your style is a lot different than Zig Ziglar,
Right.
but you remind me a lot of my mentor, who was straightforward, in your
The point.
face, no bullshit, to the point. And I love it, man. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so just like yourself, I started off in direct door-to-door sales at 14 years old, actually. So just really young. I was selling other things before that, but my first job, using my brother's actual information, like his health insurance information, to actually apply for the job. I was 14 years old, got the job right inside of high school. Worked that job. It was door to door selling aeration services. So I was grown and raised in Toronto, Canada, and we had bad winters. So the job was to poke holes in people's grass. So aside like a grass cutting service, but we would aerate the grass to allow it to breathe after the winter. So I
Okay.
sold a little small service. It was like a 30 to 40, $50 service for about 4 years. Did extraordinarily well. I was making $500 to $1,000 on the weekend in commissions. Would skip Friday schools. That was the gig for about 4 years. Was very focused. Never went through like the party lifestyle. Got right into sales at a very young age. By 15, 16, 17, I was already on, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar. I was already reading the books at 15. Some people,
Wow.
don't get into that till they're 20, 25. But my dad was in my dad was in real estate sales, and I would take off the books off his shelf and literally open up like How to Master the Art of Selling, Time Management, Psychology of Selling, when I was like
Okay.
14. So I was like a baby at that time.
So that's
And
interesting that your dad. I was going to say, man, like, how do you do that at 14 years old? So your dad was in sales. So
my
that's
my
interesting.
dad was in sales. Yeah, my dad was in sales. However, it was still not encouraged. It wasn't still like, even though I was doing great at sales, it still wasn't encouraged to become a salesperson. It was still
Got
like, yeah, but his dad's in sales. He wasn't the cool dad, like maybe like
yeah,
the as an engineer or it's still it's a taboo thing. Sales has always been a taboo thing, right? So
right,
um yeah, I did extraordinarily well in sales, but even though I was doing well in sales, still nobody told me to become a salesperson for the rest of my life. They
right.
I got into college and university, and I dropped out again within 6 months. At 19 years old, I dropped out of my first second semester university program, and I got right back into B2B sales in a medical device sales job. So how did I end up here? I was in B2B and medical device sales. I'm going to fast forward the story for a bit. Did millions of dollars in sales, hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions by the age of 24 and a half. And you're young when you use half in your age. Yeah, 24 summer, I was like, okay, this is fun. Like, I'm great at this sales thing. I love it. I started training also colleges and high schools on how to get a sales job and like why sales is such a good profession. But just out of fun, I just said, hey, I'm doing extraordinarily well. I was like the kid that dropped out of university. Sales is a career for everybody. So I started training schools for fun as I was doing medical device sales, and I started to say, wow, there's a marketplace for this. Like kids in college and high schools, they love this. They love hearing about how to get a sales job, how much you made when I was young, etc. So I seen there was some traction with it. And what we did was we opened up actually a free sales program, and we started recruiting salespeople into this program for free. I'm still doing my job. And then I said, shit, I have so many of these young salespeople coming into my free sales training program. It was like this university that we made 5 years ago or 6 years ago that was free. And that turned into us starting a sales hiring agency where we would have a lot of closers and salespeople come in. And when people need to hire salespeople specifically, they would get
Right.
trained from us and we'd outsource them. So that was my sales side of my business, and then my training side of my business just came naturally because I always say, in order to train sales, you just got to be the best. The person that holds the mic just has to make the most results, and I was doing that since I was like already 15 years old. I was already training because in reality, I was amazing inside of my job in door-to-door sales, and they would ask me, "Hey, go train on this objection." When a wife says, "Let me think about it," or my husband doesn't come home to 7 o'clock, they say, "Daniel, go deal with that. Train the warehouse this morning. How you?" So I was always training sales, and my passion project kind of turned into another business over the last 5 years. That's it. That's the quick story.
That's amazing. So, the thing that I love most about watching your work is your certainty. I mean, there is zero that when you're telling someone, you're not giving them your opinion, even though you are, you're stating the absolute fact that is indisputable. Like, where does that confidence come from? Is it just from the amount of sales you've made in your career?
I think it is. I would say I was the opposite when I was starting off in my sales career because I didn't really own that it was probably like, one of the high professions in the world. So I always say to salespeople now, I say, you won't outperform what you think you could become inside your profession or what you think your profession is worth. So like if you don't feel like if your profession's on a pedestal, you won't outperform that. You won't have certainty. You won't have confidence because you're always going to be under postured under a prospect, even if the prospect's a doctor, because you're a sales professional going to be like, well, let me not be too certain. Let me not be. So I really had to own the certainty when I got into medical device sales because I said, listen, the clinical managers and the doctors are great at what they do, but they're relying on us and relying on us to be the leaders of our business, and they're asking us for our time to go look at new products. I can't have no doubt because the moment I have any single doubt inside of the sale, when you're talking to the most highly educated individuals inside of the world, like doctors, they will smell it in 2 seconds and kick you out of the office. So it's no longer doing door to door sales. It was like, Daniel, you crack 1 second, they will shut the door in your face. And I learned that very fast. So, yeah, I think it's also just about owning the profession. I think a lot of people don't have confidence inside of sales because they don't own that they're in a high paying, great, well respected profession. They think the opposite.
We deal with a lot of younger people. I would say people from 22 to 30. We have everyone, but that demographic seems to be hungry for a direction in general. And I love the fact that you were talking to doctors in your early 20s, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of young people who have a limiting belief that because they're young, they can't do something like that. So, you know, how did you have any of that in the very beginning? And if so, how did you get through it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you this is a great question. So and I don't think it ever stops, right? Like when we open up businesses, we always have limiting beliefs. Doesn't matter how old we get or how young we are.
That's
Uh,
true.
so yesterday I was on a live stream and a kid came in my live stream. He said, "Man, how tall are you?" And I said, "I'm not tall. Like I'm like 5'6", 5'7", maybe. I'm not a tall guy." And he's like, "Well, do you think you become successful in business without being tall?" And I said, I told this kid yesterday in the live stream, I was telling him the story. I said, "So I started sales when I was 14." I said, "And when you're in the business world, you see all these tall guys, right? You're like, and being shorter, you're like, well, there's no way I can become successful. Like, look at all these tall individuals." And I said, my manager, when I was 14, came up to me and I told him one day, I said, "Man, if I was just like 6'2", like my friend Mike, I would crush it in this job. I would be making
I
double."
love.
And he said, "Dan, have you ever seen our CEO?" And I said, "No, I haven't met him yet because he was on the west coast of Canada." He said, "Our CEO is 5'5". You're going to be taller than him when you're older, and he's a millionaire." And I said, "He's 5'5"? And yes. And I said, "You don't have to tell me anything more." So I
Yeah,
said, now my thought process is always this: when somebody has a limiting belief about age, whatever it is, I say, if you whatever you have a limiting belief about, go find somebody that has became successful with the exact same thing that's holding you back. So, like, if somebody feels like, "Oh, I can't become successful, maybe because I have big ears or a big nose or big eyes," go find a millionaire that has a big nose. So I did the same thing with age. I realized, I said, well, I'm looking at kids while I was doing medical device sales, building apps that are making $1 million building apps. And I said, well, now age is irrelevant because the person that's 65 is saying, well, I can't become successful.
exactly. Right.
There's people that are 25, and the people that are 25 are saying, "Well, I can't become successful." The people that are 65, I said, everybody's sharing the same limiting belief here. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
Their
yeah,
version. Yeah.
yeah.
That's crazy. I love that, man. So go to a minute. You talked and you said like most people kind of look down at the sales profession. Now I remember that's one of the first things I connected with Zig Ziglar about because I was young and impressionable, and he used to give all these statistics about, you know, salespeople have the lowest divorce. They have this, they have that, and you know, I saw the clip you did the other day also about, you know, if you have a job at the end of the month, if you have a bill you can't pay, you're screwed. You know, where if you're in sales, you just go. It's like, first of all, why do you think in this day and age, with as advanced and sophisticated as people are, why do you think there's still that feeling? Because everything grinds to a halt without sales. The most brilliant invention in the world sits in a warehouse without sales. So why do you think that is? I'm curious your perspective.
I think, listen, on a deeper conversation, I always say it's like, I think in life nobody, and I think more so now, like you would think as people get more advanced and people start opening up their mind, they would
Right.
start like, oh wow, you know what? Sales makes the world go round. And whatever we look at, like literally, I'm staring at this pen. There's a company that manufactured this pen, and I'm not even talking about direct sales, real estate sales, coaching sales. There's a company that manufactured this pen, and they're probably a multi-million dollar company, and there's account managers in B2B sales going on the road or opening up accounts selling this pen. There's
Exactly.
people selling these capsules that are account managers. Like
Right.
in a big organization, Microsoft, they have account managers, B2B account managers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like whatever it is, Mondelez, Kraft Foods, these big billion dollar companies have these account managers. And I always say it just goes back to, I don't think you're empowered to, you know, just from the school system at a young age, you're not empowered to be strong, rich, and successful, which obviously sales can provide anybody. I think the job as an education system is not to make everybody so powerful because if it is, the world doesn't go round if it is like that. Like not everybody can become a sales individual. Um, so that's the first thing. I think that the second reason why it doesn't get taught a lot is because I don't think it's cut out for everybody. And to me, I think there's a certain grit and there's a certain grind, and you got to have tough skin to be inside of sales. It's a mixture of both. It's a mixture of skill set and having tough skin, like dealing with rejection, having good skill set. But I
Sure.
also it's not cut out for everybody. So I just because it's been a job where people just fall back on after, and then when you fall back on it, you say, "Oh shit, this was right for me," or if it wasn't right for me. The sad thing is, everybody, if you look at the statistics inside of sales, over 90% of people by the age of 30 years old go on to selling something, whether that's like credit cards or shoes inside a high school, at a retail store, but only like, I think it was like 5% of them or 10% of them stay inside of sales for a career.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to, again, going back to the programming, to our teachers saying like, hey, you should get a sales job, because it always had a negative connotation from sales movies, pressuring, manipulative,
Yeah.
etc. So it just always carries that negative connotation. I think now more than ever today, it's the same thing. I don't think it does change. So I'm trying to be an advocate to say, this is why I yell so loud. This is why when you guys
Yeah.
come out to Greece or come out to Croatia, I say yes, let's do it. Because like, if somebody's gonna yell about it, I'm gonna try to do my best.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think part of it, to your point, is education. It does a great job of marketing, to say the least. I'd love to know the total revenue of the universities in the United States. It's got to be in the trillions of dollars. So, and that was the knock my mom and dad did when I got involved in sales. It's like, well, you didn't go to college for this. Anyone can do this. You know what I mean? So I think that definitely is something that works against it. But in the same regard, I remember when the first time I met Robert Kiyosaki and had a lunch with him, and he was saying the one skill his rich dad told him he had to develop out of everything else was how to sell. Even though he was going to spend his time in real estate, he's like, you can know everything about real estate, but at some point you got to sell the property or you make no money. So it's interesting that, to your point, even if someone didn't do it as a career, don't you think it's still valuable to do it for a season of their life and learn how to do it?
100%. I love that you brought up that topic, because if you actually go ask, let's say, everybody, and you just go ask them, like, now I'm just thinking about it, even if you went to go ask our teachers and you just put a microphone to them and you say, hey, do you think sales is an important skill set to learn? They will say yes. They will
Mhm.
actually say yes. However, it's still not put inside of the education system, which is
Right.
crazy. That, like,
Yeah.
just said, like, how don't we learn how to communicate and influence maybe in grade 9? And it's not just a sales job, just like communicate and influence with anybody. The psychology of how people, think and make decisions inside of life. And when there's arguments, how do you communicate and diffuse an argument? That's basically an objection inside of sales. When there's tension that arises inside of sale, how do you deflect it and have a good so of course I agree with you, and I um the sales should be inside of the education system now more than ever. However, it is starting to come inside of some colleges and universities now more and more.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so another thing you said earlier is it's not for everyone, and I get that. I agree with that. But one of my favorite movies when my daughters were younger was, you see a lot of Disney movies when you're a dad or a mom, and when Ratatouille came out, I don't know if you ever saw that, but the thing about it was anyone can cook. And I kind of used that in business for a while because in network marketing, I believe, because I did direct selling for 7 years, selling cookware. I was a disaster. I mean, I was okay at it, but I didn't make a lot of money. And I got into networking with pretty low expectations about my financial future. And because I made millions and millions, I really believe that anyone can do it because if I can do it, anyone can do it. But anyone can do it, but not just anyone can do it. If that, and meaning, here's my question after all that. You can learn, right? Like if someone's like, I'm an introvert. Like people think I'm an extrovert, but man, I just spent a week in Paris by myself and I was happier than a pig in poop because I just like being refreshed and being by myself. And if there's a room full of people, I'm not the guy to go in and start meeting everybody. Like I'll kind of stand in a corner and not talk. So can someone who doesn't have a natural ability learn how to do this, do you think?
I like that you brought this up. Wow, that's good. I tell people the same thing when I don't know if I would consider myself extroverted or introverted. However, I love my solitude, and I'm not the individual like to say yes. Let's go to networking event, or like when I'm in business mode, you tell me, Daniel, go show up and train on a. I'm in business mode, of course. I'm in sales mode. But aside from that, I love my solitude. I will go to a cigar lounge every single night alone instead of going out to dinner with friends.
Mhm.
Just like you, I'd go to vacation alone and spend a week alone in Aruba when I was on a call with you guys, right? So
Yeah.
I think the kicker is this. I think it's you don't have to be passionate about sales. I think your hunger almost has to outweigh your passion inside of sales. Because some people say, "Well, I'm not a passionate salesperson, or I'm introverted." I say, "Okay, that's fine, but it's not an excuse not to make money." And I think your hunger should outweigh your introvert or extrovert or your passion. Because let's face it, I was not passionate about, and I made a lot of money. I was not passionate about poking holes in people's grass. I wasn't. And I
Right.
can call myself an introvert. And I was DJing and play soccer at the time. Like I loved making music, and I was a soccer player at the time when I was starting to sell. And I was introverted at the time. And I said, well, my hunger to make money was more than me being introverted or extroverted or passionate about.
Right.
And man,
Right.
it made a lot of money because I think it's sales is just the ability to find a product and find the right customers that that product can serve, or solve those customers' problems. That's it. It's like you find the customers that your product solves their problem. That's all sales is. And if you have enough hunger, doesn't matter what it is, because I know a lot of millionaires that are not specifically passionate, fully passionate, ranting and raving about toothpaste caps, but
Right.
still millionaires manufacturing toothpaste caps because they found a need inside of the marketplace, and obviously that takes sales. So I think it's more of saying like, how bad do you want it? It's not like some people give the excuse that they're introverted or I don't want to talk to people. It's not about that. It's what holds people back more than ever inside of sales, especially if they're in a sales job, whether they're in network marketing, direct sales, is they care more about how they look more than like how their paycheck would look towards the end of the month. Like they
Mhm.
care more about how they would look in front of a customer if the customer tells them, no, I don't want
Right.
to buy or I'm not joining your business, more than like the freedom that they can have in a year. And I say that's an ego standpoint now. It's like you care more about how you look when somebody
Right.
rejects you rather
Right.
than you can look a year down the road. It just means you're not hungry enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and it is interesting because there's got to be a resiliency. Here's my point though. It's like I never thought I would be in sales ever, but when I was a musician, to your point, when I was in college, and then our band just broke up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? In college, we were making, I don't know, this is a long time ago, like $300 a week cash. So I mean, I was like rolling in money, and then it was gone. So I needed something. So I answered a blind ad in the paper, ended up being this job selling cookware in China door to door. But what I found out was two things. Number one, I'm also in sports, so I was competitive. You know what I mean? So I love chasing the leaderboards and being in the rookie of the year and then winning the sales contest and all that stuff. But my very first presentation I ever did was we were selling cookware in China. So they said, "This is funny." After all the training, I looked at the guy and I was pretty naive and goofy, I'll admit. And I went, "So who do I show this stuff to?" And he looked at me, he goes, "Women. You know women, don't you? Go find the woman." I'm like, oh shit, okay, yeah. So I went to my girlfriend's mom, and she was a lady who grew up during the Great Depression, so really frugal with money. Everything in her life was very basic, and this cookware back then cost almost $2,000 a set, 40 years ago. So you can only imagine her. So she kept saying, "Tell me the price, tell me the price, tell me the price." And I'm going, "No, I can't till the end of the presentation." So finally she beat me down and I gave her the price. She was like, "Oh my God, $2,000. I'm a woman. No one's going to buy this stuff. Nobody, you're out of your mind. You take that suitcase and you bring it back and you tell them that you're going to get a real job." So brokenly, I picked up my stuff, went back to the car, but I had a company newsletter. Ironically, it was printed on like photograph or photocopy paper. It was such a cheap deal, but they had a listing of the top 100 salespeople in the world, and I started looking at the numbers, and it was like, I think that was like September, and the company had done 35 million in sales maybe for the year. And I just sat there and said, well, somebody is obviously selling it if they did $35 million. So I knocked on the door of her best friend, who was her next door neighbor, and got in and made a sale. You know what I mean? So there was something in me that took an uppercut and
Mm.
still kept going forward. You know what I mean? So I think there's got to be a resiliency or a tenacity or something. But my point is, I would have never known if I had it. I would have assumed I didn't have it if I didn't try it. You know what I mean? So I just think everybody should try, because having a job is great for some people, but having the ability to work your own hours, earn more money, and all that kind of good stuff, to me, I wish more people would be willing to try it, even on a part-time basis.
Yeah, yeah. I I think that's cool too because when I was started my first sales job too as well, I had to see somebody in the top of the leaderboard. Same thing. I'm like, wow, he sold 30 homes in one day, and the first day I didn't sell one home. Well, and then I just went up to him. I said, hey, listen, dude, like, what do you say to people when they tell you no? And he said, oh, say this. And he's like, well, you just got to get 100 of them, and then you keep saying this line. And I said, oh, eventually it worked. And you start to realize, it's all about just getting the pit out of your stomach in the beginning stage inside of sales. Like you have this pit inside of your stomach. And so the first step is just like getting out this pit in your stomach. And, in the beginning, I say, this is everything I've heard inside of sales. And my line is this because you start off and somebody says, okay, well, just work your numbers and just work really hard and knock a lot of doors. Okay. So one guy's saying, just work your numbers. And then you have another guy saying, well, be very skillful and learn sales and be a
Right.
sniper. You
Yeah.
should close every single person you talk to. And it's not a thick skin game. And I started thinking about this message more and more now. And I said, well, I think it's a both game. I think it's got to work your numbers and have work ethic and reach out to 100 people a day. But at the same time, continuously learn to get better. And when you mix work ethic with skill, that person becomes a beast. But the sad thing is, and I hope people can, when they're listening to this, really take this into account is some people work their butt off. So they work a lot of people, they knock on a lot of doors or they shake a lot of hands, and then they start to get a little bit better. And then when they get better, what they can do in the same amount of time and get the same results, they can do in less time now. And then they drop the work ethic when they get better. It's like,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a to continue the work the moment your percentage of closing goes up. Right. So
Yeah,
uh
that's so true. The gurus, and I know you probably feel this. So many internet gurus are saying, "Don't work hard, just work smart." And I'm like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You got to do both, man. It's like, isn't that crazy? When you finally get good, why would you work less hard? Because
mm,
your percentages are going to be much better, so your profits are going to be much higher, much faster.
it's almost like a sign saying, "Hey, dummy, it's working. You got a yes in a quicker amount of time." It's a sign to double down the work ethic now, not
Yeah.
like kick back, celebrate, try to find a more efficient way. No, no, no. Keep working, keep getting better, keep working, keep getting better, and the percentage goes up. And that's where I think that's where the exponential part comes inside of life, like especially in your line of work in network marketing. It's like when you continuously double down on your momentum cycles, like you don't take your foot off the pedal after you got
Yeah.
into momentum 4
Yeah.
months, and you double down. Eventually, it's like it completely takes off and it's exponential, and it's so hard to catch up to because you kept doubling down on those momentum cycles, and then eventually you have time freedom, you have leverage, and then you can take a few weeks off and go to Bali or do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think what I've seen is not just in networking, in almost any business, it's like people, it's almost like in baseball, what I always say is when you're running the first base, you don't see the player run and jump on the base. They run through the base. A lot of times they run 30 or 40 yards past it. So whatever your goal or objective is, keep going past it. If it's just funny though, right? I'm sure you've seen this where the average person wants to get maximum return with minimum effort. Or how many times people say, "How do I get rich fast?" And I'm like, "Get rich fast.
Yeah,
It's not a fast thing. And why are you in such a damn hurry? You know what I mean? It's like you're going to do something anyway. Why not find something you love doing?"
yeah,
So that 10 years from now, the book Outliers, you want to be an outlier, it takes a minimum of 10,000 hours. Now, after that, take some breaks, man. I get it. But I think a lot of people are trying to get to that point where they've quote unquote made it way too fast.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you brought that up because I always tell people it's like you don't want to become the one hit wonder where it's like you made $1 million fast, or maybe you did have a $50,000 a month fast, but because
Right.
you didn't have the skill sets or like thick skin, you won't hold on to it. So many artists that have made huge hits and then you never see them again because they
Right.
got it so fast. So it's almost like what you're wishing for, you might not want. You might not
Yeah.
want it so fast. Like you might want to eat a little bit of shit for 2 to 3 years to now when you make money, you kind of like you feel like you earn the money, you respect the money, and you want to do it again and again rather than just blowing it all and becoming a one hit wonder. So I think the always the question I tell people is like, don't ask me how to get rich fast. Ask me a vehicle that can make you rich and you're willing to put in the work ethic and whenever it comes. That's a better question. Like show me a vehicle where I can get rich, work my ass off, and whenever it comes, it comes. That's it. Right?
Okay, I'm going to throw you a complete curveball. Nothing we talked about so far, but I'm curious about your thought on this. So I'm sure you teach salespeople in every different type of sales. What are your thoughts of someone who works on a straight commission versus someone who works on a salary plus commission? Does that?
Yeah, I think the person that's on a salary play is still not fully into their sales job, and they're not executing on their full potential. And I think the person that's on a commission play has a lot more financial freedom, the potential financial freedom in the future. And that's a true sales career to me. Like anybody that's in real estate, network marketing, if
Yeah.
somebody comes they're asking for a salary, it's almost like they want some sort of safety and security. Where I think your work ethic should be your safety and security. And I think it's okay to have a job, and then and from 5 to 11, maybe you're working a full commission based.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because I've seen people over the years who they want a salary plus commission. To me, I'm like, look, to me, if I'm the person hiring you, that's a bad sign because you're telling me already you don't think you're going to be very good. Because if you're going to work on a commission, why not work on a straight higher commission? And if you're on salary plus commission, you don't make enough sales, they're going to fire you anyway. You know what I mean? It's not like they're going to hold on to you. So yeah, straight commission. I know it scares people though, right? I mean, again, that's a big reason why people don't do it. But you either can or you can't. But once you know you can, I mean, don't you have like an amazing peace of mind that you could sell anything, anytime, anywhere? You have a skill that's you could apply virtually anywhere, but you can never get there if you're afraid to see if you own it or you have it.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly this. It goes back to the potential play. Like, yeah, it's like I think for some people, learning scale sales is it's a blessing in disguise, and also at the same time, it also cripple a lot of salespeople. And I think some people are going to want to hear this too as well. If you have the ability and you become very great at sales, um, you have to watch out because you have to be disciplined as a salesperson too as well. Because when you know, just like myself, I knew this when I was young. I knew that I can every single month I could wake up and make 10, 20, $30,000 any single month. If I want to turn on the engine, boom, I can make double the sales if I wanted to work harder. I knew that since I was 14. Now, when I got serious into sales when I was 20, when I was done university again, uh I was so confident, I was so certain in my sales skills that it kind of crippled me because I said I can make 20,000, so let me go blow $20,000 in the month. And because you know you can make it back the next month, you will spend
Right.
this. You know you can make it back. I was into the casino. I loved gambling since I was
Really? Oh boy.
yeah. I gambled 18 to 23 years old. I lived in a casino for 5 years.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
and of course it wasn't like well it was big money for me at the time and for anybody that was I was young 19 and I was spending 1,000 2,000 sometimes 3,000 a night in a casino blowing all my
That's a lot.
checks.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can make it back. That's the problem. People do that now, just not with the casino. They have a $20,000 month, but because they know they can make it back next month,
Right.
they go
Right.
blow the money. They don't know accounting, their finances, etc. So I always say, make sure when you're great at sales, you know the thing that the mountain now is going to be because you could produce income. It's not how much you make. Show me how much you kept at the end of your sales career.
Well, I'm glad you said that because at the events we're doing, and I know you're going to be at some of them moving forward, which we're very excited about. But we believe there's two skills: there's earning the money, and then there's spending the money. And it is nauseating to me how many people I've met over the years who have no idea what it means to be a good steward of their money. They never learn the concept of, living on ratios, you know what I mean, and saving for a rainy day, whatever you want to call it, investing, and so on and so forth. So we believe that we're going to focus on teaching people both of those things. But I see what you're saying. There's an upside and a downside to everything. So being as
Of
good as
course,
you are, yeah, that to it. All right.
of course.
Well, I know we've already taken a lot of your time. I'm going to ask you for one more thing, because you're coming to Croatia in March, and we've told people all about you. I've told people what I've seen of you, Accetta. Give us like one badass sales tip, if you can. Just something for anyone who's watching, wants to go make more sales this week. Give us one thing. I know you got 6,000 of them, but what's one thing off the top of your head?
I always say this. I always say you'll never outperform the person that you think you could become inside of the future. So what that means, and I'll say it one more time for people listening. So I say you can never outperform the person that you think you could become inside of the future. So every single action that you take today inside of your sales job, your business, whatever it is that you're selling or doing, I say completely stems down. It's a reflection of who you think you're going to become inside of the future. If you don't think in the future you could become somebody successful, you could be a big public figure, maybe a trainer, a speaker, a coach, people look up to you, you're going to have a family. If you don't think any of that, then your habits today will always reflect it. So every single investment that you do, even from an investment standpoint, every
Mm-hmm.
single investment that you do, it stems to who you think you could become 5, 10 years down the road. If you make 10,000 and you spend 10,000 not back inside of your business or not back inside of your life, and you just spend on personal crap that's going to go out the window, then obviously you didn't feel like you were worth $1 million lifestyle, so you didn't invest it back inside of your business. If you don't work hard today, obviously in the future you don't see yourself like somebody big. So I always say every single habit that you do today is a complete reflection of who you could think you could be 5, 10 years down the road. So it's always something to think of.
I love it, man. Well, we are so excited to have you out in March for the first time to introduce you to our community. I know we'll have you more than one time, but that's going to be great. In the meantime, it's just Daniel G on social media, correct? If people
Yeah,
want to
that's
follow
it.
you.
Daniel G. Paul on social media. I'm sure we'll do a couple more of these leading up to the events.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. Well, you have a fabulous day, and have a great Christmas and great holiday season.
Holiday to you and
Yeah,
your family. Appreciate you.
yeah. All right. We'll see you very soon. Thanks,
Bye, guys.
brother.